When I was growing up, there was my great-grandmother, there was my grandmother, and there was my father. And they all spoke Ladino together. They never spoke French. But they all spoke in French to me, because for some reason in Egypt, after Constantinople, everybody had acquired sort of the French culture, French language, and they obviously had no interest in passing on Ladino. So by my generation, it had entirely disappeared. There was a time when my grandmother was visited by the police, and she was so flustered, she said, "Cierra la puerta, cierra la puerta." And of course I understood exactly what she meant, but I was surprised that she was speaking in Spanish for me for the first time, and I was 14 years old. It was the first time. Of course, sometimes she would say "Guademi," all kinds of expressions that would suggest that, you know, when she spoke from the heart, she always sort of used Ladino. So when I do my dedications to all my books, I always say something in Ladino or in Spanish. I don't know what influence or impact my Sephardic roots have had on my work, but they certainly, when I was growing up, I was aware that we had Spanish ancestry, and I was also aware that we had lived in Turkey for many generations, for hundreds of years. And I was always aware that there was a past that was hanging over us. In other words, something that had never been resolved and that couldn't be resolved. So when I started writing, I began to adopt the attitude of someone who comes from a long lineage of unresolved issues in the past. And that for me is my Sephardic influence. I mean, yes, I could describe certain foods that we had at home, and occasionally I have described them. My book, Out of Egypt, is all about a Sephardic family. And like all Sephardic families, it is not exactly sort of balanced as a family. It's an unhinged family that is torn between ancient atavisms and the desire to become French or German or Italian or British. So they were always in conflict. Well, I come to Spain first of all, I love Spain. I have always loved the Spanish language, which I don't speak, at least I don't speak it well by any means. But I love the place, I love the weather, and I can see if I don't even have to try. I can imagine that I come from here, but it's not my home, just as no place is my home. But when I come here, I am basically a tourist. And that is a weird feeling to have when you're a tourist in your alleged ancestral home. For some people, it would be like a big, amazing fever that seizes you and transports you. For some people with my personality, it is something that you look at with a certain degree of stoicism and some distance. You look at it, you say, oh, it's nice. Can it last? Will it last? That's my father's voice. That's my grandmother's voice. Maybe that's the Sephardic inheritance. It never lasts. It will always go away. They will take it away from you one way or another, which is inherited. So I look at it and I say, it's wonderful. This year has been a good year. Who knows about next year? I think because it is the choice of having physical desire sort of underscore everything I write is part of who I am. It could sometimes be physical desire for the water of the sea, just the water, nothing else. And it's the same desire that you have for other people, men, women, whatever. You are drawn to them. And this particular magnetism has always been with me all my life. I have been interested in people, but I have been attracted by people. And sometimes I'm happy about this, sometimes I'm not happy, especially when someone is indifferent to me, or I am indifferent to them, put it this way. So that's not a good thing. But by and large, I've never been interested in food. For example, food never interested me, but nature sometimes, particularly the water of the sea and people. I think that the Jewish Bible condemns homosexuality. It's unambiguous in its condemnation. Okay, one can interpret things differently, but when I was a boy of 16, 17, I read the Bible. There it is in Leviticus, I believe 18. It's a condemnation. But most Jews I know today are very open-minded. I don't know any Jew who is Orthodox. I have no interest in religion or in religious people. I don't have anything to say to them, and they don't always interest me. So, but everybody else is open. Many of my friends who are Jewish are gay, and that's fine. There's never been a problem. The writers who have had a compelling influence on me has been, one of the most important one has been Proust, there's no question. Style-wise, memory-wise, Jewish identity-wise, all these are factors that sort of conflate in Proust, and therefore that I can easily borrow if I want to. But other writers have also influenced me tremendously, and they all happen to be writers who are interested in the human psyche, in the human mind, and how the mind misrepresents reality. There's no point in being interested in the psyche if it represents reality as it is. It's always the misrepresentation of reality, the misrepresentation of what one is really thinking or what one really wants. And therefore Dostoevsky, Stendhal, I mentioned Tacitus, and usually for me, my favorite writer is Thucydides, who is a historian. And I go with Thucydides because he understands human stupidity, human spite, human ambivalence, human error. And we all live in sort of multiple erroneous decisions that we make all the time. My next book is basically written because I was interested in what happens to Elio and Oliver. I was interested and I was compelled because I loved what happened to them in the first book, and I loved the characters themselves. They were inventions of mine, but I liked them, and I wanted to find out if there was more in their lives. What would their lives have been like over the years? And therefore I went and examined that, and that's what the next book is about. Who do they become, and do they change? I think people never change. I am André Aciman. I am the author of Call Me By Your Name and of Enigma Variations, and I would like to salute and greet the listeners and viewers of Sefarad Center here in Spain.